Behind this door, men perform rituals unchanged for centuries. They speak in symbols. They swear oaths of secrecy. And if you knew what happened inside, you might never see the world the same way again. There are over 2 million Freemasons worldwide. 6,000 lodges across America alone. Chances are, you've driven past one without even knowing it. A building with strange symbols etched into its cornerstone. A square. A compass. The letter G. But what actually happens when those heavy doors close? When the candles are lit and the rituals begin? For nearly 300 years, Freemasons have guarded their secrets with a level of dedication that borders on fanatical. Men have taken their oaths to the grave. Entire families have passed down traditions without ever revealing them to outsiders. Today, we're going inside. Not through leaked documents or conspiracy theories, but through the accounts of former members, historical records, and the symbols they've left hidden in plain sight. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the Freemason Lodge. The building itself is designed to disorient you. Most Freemason lodges don't advertise themselves. You'll find them on quiet streets, often disguised as community centers or historical buildings. But once you know the signs, they're everywhere. Look for the square and compass. The all-seeing eye. The twin pillars. These aren't decorations. They're a language. When a candidate arrives for their first ceremony, they're not called a member. They're called an entered apprentice. And what happens next is something they'll never forget. First, they're taken to a small room called the Chamber of Reflection. The walls are black. A human skull sits on the table beside a candle and an hourglass. There's bread, water, and sulfur. Symbols of life, death, and purification. The candidate is told to sit alone in the darkness and contemplate their mortality. But this is just the beginning. When the door finally opens, they're blindfolded. Their left pant leg is rolled up. Their shirt is open to expose their chest. One shoe is removed. They're neither fully clothed nor naked, a symbolic state between worlds. Then comes the rope. A ceremonial noose called a cable tow is placed around their neck. In complete darkness, they're led to the door of the lodge room itself. And they knock 3 times. From inside, a voice responds, "Who goes there?" The ritual has begun. What most people don't realize is that Freemasonry operates on a system of progressive knowledge. You don't learn everything at once. You earn it, degree by degree. The first degree, the entered apprentice, is about birth and beginnings. The candidate is led into the lodge room still blindfolded. They can hear voices. Footsteps. The creak of floorboards. They're positioned in the center of the room, surrounded by members they cannot see. Then the worshipful master speaks. He asks a question that every Freemason is asked, in all cases of difficulty and danger: in whom do you put your trust? The candidate must answer correctly, or the ceremony stops. If they pass, the blindfold is removed. And for the first time, they see the lodge as it truly is. The room is arranged like an ancient temple. The ceiling is painted to resemble the night sky. Pillars stand at the entrance, representing the biblical pillars Jachin and Boaz from Solomon's temple. The floor is a black and white checkerboard, duality, balance, the eternal struggle between light and darkness. At the far end of the room sits the worshipful master on an elevated throne, flanked by 2 officers called the senior and junior wardens. Every person wears an apron. Every movement is choreographed. But here's what they don't tell you in the history books. The ritual involves physical contact. The worshipful master presses a compass point against the candidate's bare chest, not enough to break skin, but enough to leave an impression. A reminder of the oath they're about to take. And the oath is extensive. The candidate swears never to reveal the secrets of Freemasonry. They pledge loyalty to their brothers above almost all else. And then comes the penalty clause, the part that's caused centuries of controversy. The candidate agrees that if they break their oath, they accept a symbolic punishment, having their throat cut, their tongue torn out, and their body buried in the sand at low tide. It's described as symbolic. But former members say the imagery is disturbingly specific. And that's just the first degree. Once you're inside Freemasonry, you begin to notice something strange. The symbols are everywhere. Not just in the lodge, but in architecture, currency, corporate logos, government buildings. The square and compass. The pyramid with the eye. The number 33. Freemasons built some of the most important structures in Western civilization. The U.S. Capitol. The White House layout. Entire city grids were designed according to Masonic geometry. Why? Because Freemasonry isn't just a fraternity. It's a philosophical system based on ancient mystery schools. The Egyptians. The Knights Templar. The builders of Solomon's Temple. Every symbol teaches a lesson. The rough ashlar represents the unrefined self. The perfect ashlar represents enlightenment. The trowel symbolizes the spreading of brotherly love. Even the letter G at the center of the square and compass has multiple meanings: geometry, God, gnosis. But there's one symbol they rarely explain to outsiders. The third degree ceremony, the Master Mason initiation, involves a dramatic reenactment of a murder. The murder of Hiram Abiff, the legendary architect of Solomon's Temple. The candidate plays the role of Hiram. They're symbolically struck down by three villains who demand the secret word of a Master Mason. When the candidate refuses, they're killed and laid in a makeshift grave. Then, in complete darkness, the worshipful master grabs their hand in a specific grip called the lion's paw and raises them from the dead. It's death and resurrection. Played out in a ritual that predates Christianity. And here's where it gets even stranger. What if I told you that the lodge you've been learning about isn't the real lodge? The 3 degrees we've discussed, entered Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason, are called Blue Lodge Masonry. For most members, that's where the journey ends. They attend meetings, participate in charity work, and socialize. But for some, it's only the beginning. There are higher degrees. The Scottish Rite goes up to the 33rd degree. The York Rite has its own progression. And these aren't honorary titles, they're entirely separate rituals, with entirely separate teachings. At the 33rd degree, you're no longer just learning symbolism. You're learning the interpretation. The hidden history. The connections between Freemasonry and other esoteric traditions. Albert Pike, one of the most influential Freemasons in history, wrote in his book, Morals and Dogma, that the Blue Lodge degrees are intentionally symbolic and incomplete. He wrote that the real secrets are reserved for those who climb higher. Which raises an uncomfortable question: what are those secrets? Former high-ranking Masons have hinted at teachings involving sacred geometry as a universal language. Connections to alchemy and Hermeticism. And some claim that the highest degrees discuss the true nature of God, not as a religious figure, but as an architect of reality itself. But even these former members admit, there are rooms they were never allowed to enter. Meetings they were not invited to. And a level of secrecy that exists even within the organization itself. So if a 33rd degree Mason doesn't know everything, who does? The Freemason Lodge is not a single place. It's a network. A web of influence that stretches across centuries and continents. 14 presidents of the United States were Freemasons. 9 Supreme Court justices. 53 signers of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They met in rooms like the one we've described. They performed rituals. They swore oaths. And they went on to shape the modern world. Were they simply members of a philosophical fraternity? Or was there a deeper agenda? The Freemasons themselves will tell you it's all symbolic. Just men seeking enlightenment through allegory and ritual. But symbols have power. Rituals have purpose. And secrecy only exists when there's something worth hiding. The door to the lodge is still closed. The candles are still burning. And somewhere, right now, a new candidate is being blindfolded and led into the darkness. What they learn inside will change them forever. The question is, would you take the oath? Do you still want to join the Freemasons? The door is still open for you, you just need someone to vouch for you and a letter of invitation. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share.